here at our UGA Extension webinar series. I'm Laura Perry Johnson, the Associate Dean for Extension. And if you are not one of our faculty or staff, we're excited that you're joining us for this webinar this morning. This is about the 12th webinar in our series that we started during this pandemic time, and we hope that you find this information useful and helps point you to our great extension resources. Throughout the presentation, you'll see some links to our extension website. You can easily find us at extension.uga.edu. And once you go there, you can search for any type of topic. If you go to extension.uga.edu/emergencies, you'll find all of the information that we've created during the pandemic, health and safety information, hygiene information, and much more. So you can also call our toll-free number at 1-800-ASK-UGA-1, and you will be directed to your local county extension office, or you can go to our website and just search for your county, and it's very easy to find the extension contacts there. This morning, we're going to be talking about youth engagement in science programming. As UGA Extension, we're part of the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences, and definitely we want to promote science, engineering, technology, and math in our youth clientele. So this is one of our focuses with our 4-H youth programming, and many of our ag and family and consumer science faculty and staff actually program in these science areas for youth as well. Today, I'm very excited that we have three fabulous presenters for us. I will introduce them to you and then turn it over to our experts. If you have questions during the webinar, you can type your questions into the text chat, and we will have the opportunity to answer them at the end of the presentations. Our presenters today are Casey Bozeman, who is one of our state 4-H faculty. Her expertise is in the area of science and technology, and she leads many of these programs. She has experience formerly as a county extension agent and does a fabulous job. One of our newer employees is Zoe Sultan Mommy Dovin, and she is in Cobb County, a family and consumer science agent, and we're happy to have her enthusiasm and expertise with us today. And one of our agents from the coast, Jessica Warren, she is an ag and natural resources agent and comes to us from Camden County, and Jessica will be our third presenter today. These are three of our fabulous experts, and at this time I'm going to turn it over to Casey to begin our presentation.
Thank you, Laura. And like she mentioned, I'm Casey Bozeman. I work on our state 4-H staff and help provide leadership for our science and environmental education programs. And I'm so honored today to be joined with Zoe and Jessica to talk a little bit more about why science education is important, and particularly engaging our young people in science programs. So when we think of science, right, it was that class you took in high school after lunch, fourth block, you kind of weren't engaged, and then at some point you dissected a frog. And perhaps that was your experience when we think of science and what that meant for you in your formal schooling. But science is so much more than just that class that we think of when we think of our formal education, right? And certainly we have science classes out there, an integral part of youth development and being able to teach these young people science content, but science is in everything we do. And so perhaps if I were to get a good little tattoo there on my wrist of a phrase that I will live by, it would be the definition of science provided to us by the Science Council. And science is the pursuit and application of both knowledge and understanding of the natural and the social world following the systematic methodology based on evidence. So I don't know anybody out there that could say it better than the Science Council does, because ultimately what we're doing is we're learning more about that world around us, whether it's the natural or the social world, and we have some sort of method that we're going to follow and use evidence to make decisions. And that's so critical in this day and age, and really in all the work we do, whether we're a formal school teacher or informal educator through UGA Extension, whatever our roles may be, is helping young people to see this evidence and make conclusions that we can apply to our everyday lives is so valuable and so very important. So when we think of science in general, I'll be the first to say it wasn't until my junior year in college in our philosophy and methodology class. Sounds super, super fancy and exciting, I know. But we had to describe really what was science and think about it in two broad contexts. Of course, our natural sciences, where we have those disciplines like our life sciences, our physical sciences, and earth sciences out there. But it's super important to remember that social sciences are part of what we do, and certainly the psychology and sociology that's out there. It's really all woven in to the way we function and work. And do know that when we think about science education, and particularly STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics with young people, we're generally focusing on that natural science realm, right? Biology, chemistry, and physics. But don't forget that the social sciences certainly exist, and they're an important component of what we do. So just to kind of frame why this is important and why this matters, particularly now. So thinking about just the history of the earth, right? And human existence on our planet, 90% of our data has actually been generated in the last 2 years. So thinking about that entire timeline, right? And realizing 90% of our data is so recently generated, you can just see that exponential growth and how science and STEM is constantly evolving and morphing over time. And also note just our last decade from 2000 to 2010, any job within the STEM field, so again, science, technology, engineering, and math, grew at about a rate of 3 times of those professions that are not STEM related. But then at the same time, just in 2018, we had over 2 million STEM jobs go unfilled. So the need is there. We know we're doing this, and yet we see this lag, particularly in the Western culture. Another thing to realize is that we also are seeing our minority representation in the science and engineering fields being underrepresented, particularly the groups that are mentioned there, our Black and African American population, our Hispanic and Latino population, and then the American Indian and Alaskan Native population as well. And so we see this underrepresentation, but yet know that we have youth in these racial demographics that could easily benefit from being exposed to science at a young age to perhaps inspire them to look at science and engineering degrees in the future. And the other thing to know as well is you think of roughly half of our population identifies as being female, and yet you see that we have a gender gap as well in the STEM fields. What's interesting to know is that these percentages you see here from 2016 are roughly the same as what was reported in 2006. So while we don't necessarily see a huge growth, we certainly are going to be seeing that while about 50% of females receive science and engineering bachelor's degrees, a lot of those are going to be focused on your social sciences, or they're going to be in psychology and biosciences, whereas fields like computer sciences and engineering are grossly being underrepresented by women. So again, these are our population. These are the folks that we work with every single day. And in particular, when we think about young people, these are the folks that we can reach through engaging science opportunities that could perhaps inspire them to help fill these gaps and earn these degrees and help us be a more prosperous community. And again, when we think of science though, right, you and me and probably anybody you grab off the street, the first thing you think of is the crazy scientist, right? The kind of messy hair, the lab coat, the microscope. And that stereotype, we've got to move beyond, right? Certainly we have great scientists that work in laboratories, 2 in my family, so no worries there. We certainly have great advances, but we've got to move beyond helping young people, especially to understand that science is ingrained in what we do, and more importantly, can be integrated into such a variety of their own personal skill sets and interests. And so when we think about what we do, maybe Dr. Johnson, this would be your little personal tattoo you keep on your wrist, but thinking about what we do in extension, and we are here to translate the science, right? And science of the everyday living. And so we're making more prosperous communities and making them more healthy and vibrant because we help take that research, that information. We are biased towards factual stuff, right? We want to have that evidence. We want to have something that's concrete, we've observed, we know that this works and is out there, and helping people to draw those conclusions. And so within extension, we're doing this at all age levels, right? So literally as young and or as old as you could possibly be, but thinking especially as we hone in on helping to translate the science of everyday living for young people, it's so critical and valuable. And it's so critical and valuable because today's youth, the young people that we have an opportunity to interact with in whatever capacity that may be, these youth of today, they're tomorrow's voters, right? They're tomorrow's parents, they're tomorrow's farmers, they're our next set of producers, our teachers, our citizens, our new clientele, our political leaders. These are the young people that we have got to train today in order to be able to know how they're going to shape and influence tomorrow. Because the reality is we catch them at a young age, we teach them this factual information, and it's super important and valuable. And when we think about science and that content that's out there, of course that content's important. We want young people to understand the biology behind a certain phenomenon, why this works this way or that way. But science education transcends just the content. It's so much more than that. When we think about science and the STEM disciplines, science also helps young people develop life skills. And those life skills that we have, right? Look at all these up here. This is what we want the next generation to be able to do, right? We want them to be able to communicate with each other. We want them to be able to keep records, to help problem solve and plan, be able to critically think and analyze information that they have in front of them. Sure, I want kids to know all the names of the native trees in Georgia and how to look at a soil profile and tell the texture of the topsoil there. But beyond that, I want kids to be able to critically think. I want them to problem solve. I want them to be able to compare and contrast different characteristics of that soil so that they can make an informed decision using that evidence to be able to apply that knowledge to whatever they may be doing. And again, while the content's important, when we think about the bigger picture of life skill development, back to what our motto is, we are translating that science. And we have so many ways to do that. Certainly within 4-H and youth development, perhaps when you think of youth programming with science, that may be the first part of extension that you would consider. And certainly we do a lot of great work there. Know that we have county faculty and staff all across the state that are able to support this. But it transcends just 4-H too. So within cooperative extension, we can certainly help young people understand science with family and consumer science programming, as well as agriculture and natural resources. And that's why I'm excited to also hear from Zoe and Jessica today, because they've been extremely successful in these realms and know that it's something that's beyond just 4-H and youth development. It's infused in our entire extension work. We are here to translate that science for them. And just know we have those resources and opportunities available and out there. We have things posted on our website. We have trainings and opportunities for folks to take advantage, particularly when it relates to science efforts for kids and helping to frame the context and helping them be able to, of course, learn that content, but then again, build the life skills as well. And of course, I'd be remiss not to share some great 4-H stories about young people that I've had the opportunity to work with while I was a 4-H agent in Liberty County. Two individuals that kind of stand out in my mind, particularly when it relates to science efforts, include Sophia Rodriguez there on the left and Addison Sean James there on the right. Now, a few years ago, the three of us, along with some more 4-Hers, were traveling in our van somewhere, and I was sitting there in the driver's seat. And at this point, Sean has graduated from our county 4-H program and was back as a collegiate member and volunteer leader, sitting in the passenger seat to my left. And Sophia was sitting right behind us in the middle seat, eagerly paying attention to kind of what we were talking about and just chatting about the day. And so as we were sitting there at a red light in Hinesville, Sophia kind of interrupted the conversation and said, you know, I feel so proud of myself when we can sit at a red light and I know because of 4-H forestry judging, that's a live oak and that's a water oak and that's a loblolly pine tree. And so as a little scientist in my heart, you know, kind of got a little bit warm, and I thought, you know, that's kind of cool for a 17, 18-year-old young person to realize why it's invaluable to have this information and they feel empowered and connected to these natural resources because I've simply taught them their names and how to identify them. And Sean, without skipping a beat, was a member of our state-winning land judging team a few years prior. And he said, man, when I'm driving around South Georgia and I can look out and I see one of those class 1 croplands, all I can think about is, man, some soybeans would be looking good out there. And so as funny as that was to me, experiences that these young people have had in 4-H and in particular 4-H science opportunities have really stuck with them. And who knows what these two may end up doing with their careers and opportunities to influence others. But we know that extension programming works because regardless, I don't think Sophia is going to be a forester, and I'm pretty sure Sean's not going to be a soybean farmer. But regardless, they have the skills and the knowledge to be able to be successful through our science endeavors. And so I'm excited that Jessica and Zoe are going to share a little bit more about their work today and show how this is beyond just 4-H youth development. Science is integrated in all that we do and can easily help meet the needs of the young people of Georgia.
Hi y'all, so my name is Zoe and I am Family and Consumer Sciences Agent with UGA Extension in Cobb County, and I cover topics related to home, health, food, family, and money. So you would say, oh, how is this related to science? So you will get to see how it's related to science. So in Cobb, next slide. So in Cobb County Extension Office each year participates in Cobb County Teachers Conference, and this is our introductory slide because most people in our community, when they hear about extension, they think that extension does only 4-H, but we like to tell them that we have 3 different program areas, and we also like to tell them that all of our resources are free, because after they hear our interesting presentation, they're like, ooh, how much is that to have you come to our school? So we would like, from the beginning, we would like to let them know that all of our resources are free. Next slide. So Cobb County 4-H partners with Cobb County School Districts and Marietta City School Districts to provide monthly in-school 4-H science enrichment lessons that tie directly to Georgia Standards of Excellence. And that's, if we are able to tie our activities to Georgia Standards of Excellence, this is how we are able to grab teachers' attention. So lessons correlate to the county science pacing guide and serves as preview or reviews for science concepts. Cobb 4-H has lessons that meet physical, earth, and life science standards. One example of these activities is microorganisms sleuth lesson. This lesson focuses on good versus bad bacteria, microorganisms through using a critical thinking project called Poison Pump. Cobb County 4-H also works both with 4th and 5th grade classes to supplement English language arts and speaking and writing standards through Georgia 4-H Project Achievement Program. This standard is taught in 5th grade through monthly oral presentations by students prior to their science lessons, and in 4th grade through Get Your Game on English language arts lessons. Next slide. So you will ask, how is family and consumer sciences can get related to science? So what captures the interest of students and pretty much everyone else? Any guesses? Okay, food. Yes, food can be used to engage students in science. Shocking, right? So in school, food and nutrition activities tied to ELA, math, and science Georgia standards of excellence. And on the slide, you can see examples of different activities that we bring to schools and actually anywhere like with youth. These hands-on and mind-on activities link food and nutrition to science, and also they link to students' everyday life. By reading nutrition facts labels, students not only cover their English language, arts, and reading standards, but they also learn importance of nutrition labels in helping them make healthier life choices. By participating in these hands-on activities, they're not only engaging in science, but they're also learning important life skills to help them become successful adults. And like Casey mentioned earlier, we know you gotta start them right. So the earlier you start, the better it sticks with them. So this is another example of activity that we do with youth, which is ingredient functionality. And this is, we talk about different ingredients in the recipe, and it teaches them the importance of each ingredient in the recipe. We then give them different recipes with different combination of ingredients, and then they get to make educated guess, because once we provided them the information and the facts, that's how they're able to make the educated guess. And the next slide, which they get to make a hypothesis. So we introduce them to scientific methods, and hypothesis is, as we know, is the initial building block in scientific method. So during this time, we are becoming creative by adapting our outreach and finding other ways to still provide our resources and still provide those educational information and educational lessons by creating. If we have other extension agents, you probably know that you had to adapt very fast. So by creating videos or Zoom classes, Zoom webinars and classes to still be able to reach our audiences. And this is one of the, my most popular experiments that I actually do in schools. And this fascinates not only youth, but adults also. And it shows them the importance of whole grains, but it also shows them the science behind it. So you will get to see a short video.
We all hear that whole grains are good for you. We should be eating more whole grains. But today we actually will see why we should be eating more whole grains. So the experiment consists of pieces of whole grain bread and white bread. So whole grain has all three parts to it. So it's rich in fiber, vitamins, and minerals. And white bread has bran and germ removed. So our experiment, I'm gonna put my bread here. And I have two clear bowls so you guys can see what happens in my bowl. I'm going to pour 2 cups of orange juice in each bowl. And orange juice imitates acids in our stomach. So stomach acids help us break down food. So that's what helps us digest food. So when we eat, our acid stomachs break down the food. So 2 cups of orange juice. And as we mentioned, whole grain is rich in fiber, and fiber helps us stay fuller longer. So in our experiment, I'm going to put 2 pieces of bread at the same time in their bowls, where we'll count to 10 seconds, and then we'll see what happens in our stomach when we eat whole grain bread versus when we eat white bread. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I am going to pick up my white bread, and can you guys see that it's breaking apart? And now I'm going to pick up my whole grain bread. and it still stays together. So what do you think is helping this bread stay together? All that fiber, because fiber helps us stay fuller longer. So when we eat whole grain bread in the morning, we don't get hungry as fast, and whole grain bread can help us stay fuller longer until lunchtime. Or if we eat whole grain crackers for snack, it will still help us not get hungry as fast. So as you can see, whole grain is better for you. I hope you all enjoyed the lesson, and now you know why whole grain is better for you. And next time you reach for bread, you choose whole grain bread.
Okay, and as I mentioned earlier, food captures interest of students and adults, so we always try to incorporate some kind of food-related activity in our activities, and this is just an example of different things that we do, and even by doing those, we can still cover those standards of excellence. So we do Munchie Mix, students get to learn to read ingredients, to follow instructions, read instructions. They measure. If they need to double the recipe, they will double. They will do their math calculations. Then sometimes if we have enough time, we will do pancakes, and we'll give them different combination of ingredients. We will ask them to use white flour or whole wheat flour, so they will make their predictions if the pancake's gonna come out fluffy or if they're gonna come out dense based on their ingredient combination. We also get to do freezer strawberry jam. So we talk about chemical reactions that happens when we mix strawberries, sugar, and pectin. We also get to make homemade butter, and sometimes we will give them like cold heavy cream or room temperature heavy cream. So they have to make predictions which one will turn faster into butter, what will happen. So they talk about physical changes. And of course, the best part is they get to eat whatever they made. So we always have a taste test, and with taste tests, sometimes they will get to write what they experienced, if they have like different textures, different tastes. So this is I'm gonna share now personal story since Casey shared hers. So when people ask me, so what do you do? I'm like, let me tell you about my job. I have the best job ever. I get to cook. So my job doesn't really feel like a job because I get to cook, I get to play with food, all while educating people about importance of healthy eating, educating students about importance of healthy eating, but also exposing them to science. So yeah. And that's my presentation.
Good morning. I'm Jessica Warren, and I'm the Agriculture and Natural Resources Agent and County Extension Coordinator in Camden County, which is the furthest southeast corner in the state. And I'm going to talk a little bit about integrating youth programming into your natural resources work. So I think as an ag and natural resource agent, we don't often think about programming to youth unless we're directly helping our 4-H program. But even if your normal target audience is adults, I've always found that one of the most effective ways to reach them and to create behavioral change with adult audiences is often through their children and their grandchildren. And often you can expand your audience and get adults to attend programming that may not normally attend as an individual, but they'll participate as a family, and especially if it's something that their children or their grandchildren are in. And you may hear me mention grandchildren or older audiences a lot because we do have a large retired population down here, of course. So one of the ways that youth programming has kind of become integrated into my ag and natural resources work, which being on the coast, we have more natural resources issues. We don't have any row crop ag. We're not really well suited for that, but is through the Adopt a Stream program. So we're a pretty large county, not as large as some of the metro area, but for Southeast Georgia, we're pretty large. We have 9 elementary schools and 2 middle schools and 1 very, very large high school. And I've gotten a lot of interest from local teachers in the Adopt a Stream program. So this was something I started originally for adult volunteers, and I do still have adult volunteers, but also every gifted teacher, elementary school teacher in the county has now started this program with their classes. One of the middle schools, I trained their teachers and their one of their administrators last year. And then I have one high school science class now, formerly 2 high school science classes that were involved as well. So each year I train the teachers, I recertify the teachers, but then I also go into the classroom and into the field with the students and help teach them about water quality monitoring through the Adopt a Stream program. So, you know, for most of us, we don't really like to be talked at. But if we can put things into an interactive form, it's a lot more effective. And not just effective as in getting people interested, but it's also effective in making that knowledge real, bringing those concepts to life. So when we go out and we do water monitoring, this is a real world application of chemistry. So we have 4th and 5th graders who are doing titrations, which is something that you don't normally learn in chemistry till, well, I can't say anymore, but it used to be high school. So we're doing titrations, we're learning how to follow procedures and protocols to ensure that we're getting quality data, and we have checks in place to ensure that. They learn about water quality parameters and how those parameters affect aquatic life and why they affect aquatic life, but also how they affect human health and the local economy and industry. We also learn about recording data, which is an important part of science as well. And then there's always unplanned learning opportunities. So the picture you see there was actually a training with some teachers. I don't usually take pictures of the elementary school classes I'm working with when I'm out with them as a class. But we've been at that same dock before and had manatees come up during a workshop, which is an impromptu learning opportunity, which is really cool. And even things like aquatic invasive species. So on the Satilla River, they have a problem with water hyacinth, and you'll see these huge mats of floating water hyacinth, which has a beautiful flower, but can just choke out a waterway. And the students really got interested in, well, Miss Jessica, what is that? And why is it there? And is it good or bad? And we have a big in-depth conversation about what invasive species are, what makes them invasive, why we should care, and what we can do about them. So there's a lot of unplanned learning opportunities as well. Another one of our programs, I do a lot of work with invasive species, especially since we're right on the Florida line, and Florida has a lot of invasive species problems that don't seem to know there's a state line there to observe. So one of the problems that we have is island apple snails. And island apple snails are these very large snails that get to the size of a baseball or an apple. And occasionally we'll have cleanups, community cleanups. They're usually on a Saturday. And they're around, we have tons and tons of ponds and lakes in the county. Since the county is essentially a wetland, everywhere that they've built a development, there's a pond that they dug out for the fill dirt for the houses. So we have a lot of these ponds infested with island apple snails, which are invasive snail that originally probably came from the pet trade that was released, but they can really change the ecology of freshwater bodies, decimate local vegetation, things of that nature. So we've had these community cleanups, and we've had a huge amount of kids and families, even very young children, come out and help. The picture you see there is actually one of our high school science classes who came out on a Saturday and picked up snails. The cleanups aren't hard, but it gets the kids involved. It gets them in the water. They joke around, they have fun. And even though they don't necessarily think they're learning that much at the time, they are, because you can't work with these huge snails and not have questions about them. So they end up learning about the biology of the snails, things like their life history, their reproductive rates, which are huge, their feeding habits, what makes them invasive and how it affects the ecosystem, why we're cleaning them up, why we want to get rid of them. And then also at the end of the cleanup, we calculate the gallons collected. There's also lessons there, because a lot of times you pick them up and there are 2 of them joined together. So, you know, that can be, depending on the age group, an interesting conversation too, but they can see how high their reproductive rates are when we're cleaning up these things by the gallons and also scraping their egg masses off. And you can see how they lay thousands of eggs at a time. So there's a lot of really good learning opportunities there, and learning in a way that makes it interesting and natural and not forced. So another one of our programs that has kind of a passive science side as well is we do some river or water body cleanups. We usually do 2 a year. We've cut back a little bit because we've gotten more active river keepers lately in our area. But as you can see, most of who comes out for our river cleanups is families. And we have some adults that come on their own, but we have multi-generational. I know at our last cleanup, we had grandparents, parents, and children all from the same family coming together to clean up the area. So, you know, this offers a lot of different learning opportunities and to get more comfortable and familiar in your natural environment. People learn a lot that isn't necessarily related to the river cleanup either. I'll get lots of questions about things that they find or animals that they see or plants that they see. But they also learn things about decomposition rates as you're collecting litter and debris. We learn and talk about the effects of litter on wildlife and on water quality and on, again, like our local fishing industry and our human health as well. And then at the end, again, we calculate the debris that we collect. So we usually offer a prize for who's collected the most poundage or the largest item. And we calculate the amount that we have collected as a group overall and talk about the impact that that's had on our local environment. So the interesting thing too is that everything you do has a ripple effect. So by doing these programming, these different types of programming with school groups or with teachers and helping any audience that's interested in those sorts of things and embracing that, we've had some what I call overflow. So we've had several teachers that have gotten really invested in our Ag and Natural Resource program outside of our normal 4-H program. So as you can see in the picture there, we had a stormwater workshop that was actually directed at homeowners in general. So it was an adult audience that we were directing it towards. But one of the teachers that I routinely worked with wanted her AP Environmental Science class to come. And she brought them and they enjoyed it and I think got a good amount out of it. Kind of expanding their knowledge base and helping them to understand their local environment, our local weather patterns, and how those things affect their health and safety. We've also, I put on, usually in partnership with DNR, I put on a rain barrel workshop or 2 each year, and we've had a huge outpouring of families taking interest in that. And there's an educational portion about stormwater management in that as well. So we usually have a lot of family groups come bring their kids and get their kids involved in making a rain barrel and learning about water conservation. We also, when I've done Trees for Bees programs, we also have people who want to bring their children to that. They want their kids to learn about pollinators. We work to have it fit the whole audience of multi-generations. And I also usually set up a painting station for the kids. So after they make their bee box or bee hotel, then they can decorate it themselves. Another benefit is that in working closely with those teachers and forming those relationships, some of our high school science classes have offered extra credit to their students for going to river cleanups or for choosing to continue their certification past their time in the class with Adopt a Stream, or for attending different workshops and things like that. So it's really kind of expanded our reach a little bit in a way I didn't really plan on or expect, but it's been beneficial to the overall program. So another benefit, or several other benefits, I think, when I have multi-generational groups, it leads to more diversity of thought and perspectives. We have better discussions, we have more interesting things come up, and it helps them, the participants, to see things from different perspectives. And especially for some of our adult audiences, because as we all know, as we get older, we all get a little more set in our ways, which is why that interaction with youth, they're more likely to make a change or influence a change in their families. You know, a lot of times youth are more receptive than some of the adult audiences. And that multi-generation just leads to a lot more opportunity, I think, for learning and for openness. And, you know, as we've talked about, a lot of these opportunities, we have opportunities for both passive and active learning. So sometimes, I think a lot of times the learning is most fun when people don't even realize they're doing it. And that's because their curiosity gets piqued, they get interested, and they're not even thinking of it as learning. It's just following their interest at the moment. And creating, another benefit that comes out of this is that it creates a vested interest in the participants' local ecosystem and their community. So they get curious about where they live and what's going on there, and they take a vested interest in it. And I think this is really important for no matter what our program area is, and I think we've all talked about this today, but interactive programming helps bring science to life. So there's not many people that want to just be talked to, but when we can make it something interactive, something, you know, whether it's making food, whether it's going out to a river, any way that we can make things more engaging and interactive helps bring that programming, that science to life. And then what I wanted to wrap up with that I have really experienced is that integrated programming creates a unified community vision of extension and our work, and it builds a stronger and more effective team. So I think Zoe mentioned that, you know, some people think extension is just 4-H, and then sometimes at our office, people think extension is just the ag agent. And by integrating our programming and working together, we can further our impact. And then the community also sees us as a unified program, not as our 4-H agent and our ag agent, and oh, I didn't even know they were in the same office. Instead, they see how we work together. And there are ways definitely that we can take for instance, my Ag and Natural Resources programming and projects I have going on and incorporate a youth aspect into it. And we could both have twice as much impact with half as much work, which as much as there is to do and as many people as we all have to educate, that's really powerful. And it builds a stronger team, and you can count on each other and cover for each other more, and that's important as well, I think.
Well, thank you so much. I am never, ever, I never fail to be impressed and amazed at our great extension professionals, but I really do appreciate the perspective that you took today. I gave this topic to Casey, and I did not even know how she was going to approach it or who she was going to ask to join her. But two of the things today that really impressed me and stick with me is the fact that over 100 years ago, 4-H began with the boys' corn club and the girls' tomato canning club, because we were trying to teach skills to adults through youth. And that is still a very effective manner to approach things with today. Also, one of the things that I continually preach about and get on my soapbox about is that we are best when we are most integrated, especially at the local level. Most of the problems that face our communities and our state and our nation and our world today, they're not single dimensional and they're not simple. And so when we integrate our expertise from Ag and Natural Resources, Family and Consumer Sciences, and 4-H Youth Development, then we really are at our best. So Jessica, I really appreciate you bringing that out, because I think that really is one of the heart and soul issues of cooperative extension today. Please type your questions into the text chat if you have questions for our fabulous panelists, and we will get to work asking them some. And if you don't have questions, I'll have to make up some, but I'm always full of questions. So I think we'll start. The first question is for Jessica. And Jessica, Suzanne asked, can you eat the apple snails like escargot? I was kind of wondering what you do with those buckets full of snails after you catch them. So I am one of those kids that when I went to camp in Florida, I brought back some of those cute little snails in a jar and tried to keep them at my house, and I'm sure eventually they got released. So what do you do with them, and can you eat them?
That's a great question. So I get this question all the time. Technically, you can eat them, but if you do not prepare them right or cook them well enough, you can get rat lungworm. And usually as soon as I say rat lungworm, most people are totally turned off. Now, I have had a gentleman who went out and collected a bunch, and he said he was going to make a lot of gumbo with it. So I'm not sure how that went. He didn't follow up. But what we normally do is we partner. I have a lot of colleagues I work with regularly at DNR locally, and they have a walk-in freezer. So the best way to dispatch them is either to crush them or to freeze them. So what we do is we collect them. We have a bunch of buckets, and people individually collect them into 5-gallon buckets. When their buckets get full or too heavy, they dump them into these 50-gallon trash cans that we have on dollies, so they roll. And I am a steering committee member of the Coastal Georgia Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area, or SSMA. And we have a SSMA trailer with equipment on it. So we roll those big old trash cans onto the SSMA trailer to haul them back to Brunswick. And in Brunswick, we roll them into the DNR's walk-in freezer, freeze them overnight, and then they're dead. So we dump them the next day in the woods around the office there, and wildlife eat them or they just decompose. But that's what we do.
Well, that is very interesting to know. Well, Jessica, I've got a question for you. I'll invite everyone else to type their questions in the text chat, but I know that you are quite the expert on invasive species. We have a lot of invasive species in Georgia, both plant and animal. Can you tell us about some of those, and what are some of the most dangerous ones for Georgia?
Well, honestly, that's going to depend a lot on where you live and what your perspective is. So it's interesting because I'm putting together some statewide presentations right now and also doing some local lunch and learns. And tomorrow I am doing one on invasives in the home landscape. But even in the home landscape in the coastal region, they're going to be different than in the natural landscape. I can easily tell you on the coast what the worst are. In North Georgia, it's going to be a lot different. So things like privet Chinese privet are more prevalent in North Georgia, whereas down here we have more problems with like Chinese tallow. Wisteria is commonly used in the landscape, and there is a native wisteria, but most people plant the Japanese or Chinese wisteria, which is invasive. Elephant ear can be invasive. The lantana that has the multiple colored flowers is invasive. There's a lot of things that are really prolific and hardy and can survive where natives may not, that can displace them. And especially things that make berries that wildlife then carries, acres or miles away and deposits somewhere else. So I don't think you want me to talk for that long. So there's a lot of answers to your question. And then of course, feral hogs are destructive everywhere. So it depends too what you're looking at. But invasive species they are a very largely recognized issue. Biodiversity, they are the second largest threat behind habitat destruction to biodiversity globally. And biodiversity, the loss of biodiversity that we're experiencing globally actually rivals the threat of climate change as far as species continuation on Earth. So,
wow. Well, one that everyone talks about up in North Georgia is kudzu, that you can just see it growing. I guess it's kind of like pigweed, grows that fast. But we have a Center for Invasive Species on the UGA Tifton campus, and some of our scientists there have developed apps and other methodologies to track the spread of invasive species, and we work on a lot of those things as it impacts our food crops. So thank you for that interesting answer and for that great expertise you have. Well, Casey, I wanted to ask you, I know that in Georgia 4-H, science and technology is one of the mission mandates, not just in Georgia, but across the nation for 4-H, and we spend a lot of time trying to partner with our public school systems to be able to help influence that. But tell us some of the fun and exciting programs we have in Georgia 4-H that do promote science and technology and things that might be available during this pandemic time virtually.
Absolutely, Laura. Like you mentioned, it's really integrated into all that we do, and it's been there since the beginning when we think of 4-H youth work. So there's a lot of variety of ways that young people can get involved in 4-H STEM opportunities through their local extension offices. That may be some sort of face-to-face program, or perhaps something that's being taught at a school, or partnering with a community entity like a library or an after-school program. And then we do have some great statewide opportunities as well, particularly during this time when our face-to-face programming has been somewhat limited. We have a great series called our Zoom into Science sessions. And so far we've been able to connect young people all across Georgia to scientists that are real and live and working there in the fields and in their laboratories and doing some really great things. And so again, we kind of balance, let this expert in their area of expertise tell us firsthand what they're doing and why this is important. And then beyond that, help kids kind of see themselves in the future, and perhaps this may be an area that they're already interested in. And so how do you become this researcher? What classes do you take in college? What should you study? What should you kind of plan? And so even just this afternoon, we've been hosting them on Thursdays at 4 o'clock. We typically do about 2 a month. We have somebody talking to us about paleontology and fossils and why fossils are important and what we can learn from years past to help us know about the present. So for those of you who are connected to your local extension office, I know Laura has shared how to make that happen. Please feel free to reach out. We have sessions already being planned, 2 per month through the end of 2020 right now. So great opportunities. Again, all young people have to do is just have the ability to log on to a device. They don't need a microphone or a video or anything like that. We have it all set up and ready to go for them literally to learn from this particular expert.
Well, thank you, Casey. Pam Knox is our state climatologist, and she has a question. I'll ask this to Casey. Do you have specific lessons on weather and climate? And Pam says she would love to help develop some for youth if that is something that we don't have. Definitely a very hot topic these days.
It is, Pam, and I know prior to me assuming this role, you worked some with Melanie Byersmith on some lessons and resources. We're so fortunate we have our Friends magazine that aligns with weather, particularly with our 4th grade Georgia Standards of Excellence, and then 6th grade also covers some weather as well. We have our Journeys magazine there. We also partner with Project WET, which is a great national organization that teaches water education components, and they just released a new curriculum about water and how it relates to climate. And so we're in the process of putting together some face-to-face trainings that will happen in 2021. They'll be open, of course, to our extension faculty and staff, and also the general public as well. And so, Pam, I'd love to see ways that we could potentially work together on making that resource available. And then too, just know that those of you who work for extension, if there is a particular topic or interest that you have and need those resources, I promise I'm not exaggerating when I say at least 10 or so times a week, I'm always getting a question that somebody wants to teach about rocks or stars or chemistry or whatever. So we are happy to pull together resources and things that we know, of course, going back to we're research-based, we want kids to have evidence so that they can make their own conclusions.
Well, I know Zoe has to leave us in just a few minutes, so I want to ask her a question. Zoe, I think it was pretty exciting that you are a family consumer science agent and you were here today talking about how you share that expertise with youth. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the Ag Facts and 4-H programs work together in your office? I think in an urban area that is even more of a need as we reach such a diverse audience in our urban populations.
Yes, so I was pretty fortunate because when I came, our 4-H agent, she is very well connected with our school district. So she's been working with them prior to that. And then, so our school district really relies on us. And each year when they have their teacher conference, we always present. So we present how teachers can use extension as a resource to cover their Georgia standards of excellence, especially when they run out of ideas to teach. And so we get together and we teach different things. And like Casey mentioned, if you have a specific topic that you don't see on our website or whatever, we tell our teachers too, if you have a topic that you don't see or that we didn't mention, or you have a certain standard that you need to cover, like reach to us, because I'm not a teacher. I don't have a teaching background, so I'm not very familiar with standards of excellence. So we tell them reach to us, and then if there is a standard that they need to cover, we will get together, and among us agents we'll be like, hey, can you cover this standard by doing this, or do you have any activities that you can cover? So, and then another activity that Facts and 4-H, for me, I am very passionate about youth education, and I am passionate about science because I did have my bachelor's is in chemistry, and the reason I went into science because when I was little, they said, oh, little girls cannot be scientists. I'm like, watch me. So our 4-H agent, and for me, it's easy. So 4-H agent will come like, hey, Zoe, do you want to do this? I'm like, yes, if anything with youth, I'm happy to do it. And actually, it's probably off your question, but one of the things that has been successful with this pandemic for us is I do a monthly cooking club, virtual, and that has been a great success. And I am actually pleased with doing it virtually. I have a better response doing it virtually than in person, because in person I have a limited space, limited kitchen. But virtually, I had great participation, and I always make sure to throw in science in there.
Well, Zoe, I've watched one of your sessions. I learned how to make energy bites from you. So I think you do a great job. Thank you.
I'm actually presenting it now, so I got it on.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
well,
you.
As we wrap up, I just, for those of you who may not be from Extension, I want to let you know we do have 5 4-H centers that are spread across the state. We say from the oceans to the mountains. And right now we are delivering a set of lessons, one each day of the week from each of our different 4-H centers. So it's a great opportunity for youth or adults to log on and learn more about the natural environment and access some of those wonderful resources from our 4-H environmental educators. So you can look on the front of our website, and if you go to extension.uga.edu, right up at the top, you'll see a link for calendar. If you click on that, you can access all of our virtual programming that is available to the public, and it is vast. So we hope that you will do that. And we just thank you for joining us today. For me, this was a very exciting session, and I enjoyed it. I hope all of our participants did as well. I want to thank our presenters. They were awesome. I want to direct you back to our resources. The links are there at the bottom of the page. Extension.uga.edu/emergencies is where all of our COVID related resources are located, or you can just do extension.uga.edu for all of our general information. We are having these extension webinars twice per month. Our second one for July will be on July 23rd. We've had quite a few successful webinars on gardening. So now our experts are going to show you how to preserve the bounty that you have grown in your garden by freezing, canning, preserving, any other types of preservation methods. And that will be on July 23rd at 10:30 a.m. In August, we are going to start featuring some of our local county programming and local county webinars, and we'll be advertising those and letting you know what those are as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to our presenters and our OIT technical staff who helped make this possible. And we hope that you will go to our website and look at some of our other resources and contact us when you need to translate the science of everyday living in your life. So thank you very much and have a great day.